We're out in the garden now. It's about, oh, I don't know, probably about 28 when I came out, so it might be 30 now. The breeze makes it a little cooler, but that's okay. I'm still sweating from being in the greenhouse. I actually have a coat with me, but it's hanging on the water faucet over there. This is our garlic bed, and it's also our sunchoke bed. Now, sunchokes are also called Jerusalem artichokes. Most places in the United States, if you grow sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes in a non-contained environment, they will spread like wildfire and you will never get rid of them. They're kind of like sometimes when you plant potatoes and you have a little potato left over and the next year it comes up. Except they're hardier than potatoes. So this was one of our first permanent beds here when we started up the garden. I planted it full of sunchokes because I knew that they could be really invasive. And I also added a lot of garlic, 2 different kinds. We have a hardneck and we have a elephant, which is, by the way, not really a garlic. It is actually a leek, but that's another piece of trivia. So our goal this spring had been to completely, well, actually, last fall, our goal was to completely empty this out, improve the soil, and replant Jerusalem artichokes and garlic. I have thinned out the garlic over the years, but I have never completely removed it, and I really wanted to do that. It didn't happen. Our ground froze very early, and it just didn't happen. So, what I decided I would try to do this spring is, I learned this winter, watching other people's videos, we were just chasing a stick, but I had to be sure. I knew there wouldn't be any snakes at this time of year, but I couldn't imagine what she was so excited about. We do occasionally find random bugs or something that have managed to survive the winter, and she actually earned some kibble the other day by getting herself a mouse and breaking it and bringing it to me for me to fix. Obviously, I didn't fix it. Well, I fixed it. I put it out of its misery, but anyway, back to garlic. So our goal was to completely rebuild this last fall. Now, these are our secure beds. By that I mean there is a layer of hardware cloth in the bottom, and then there's dirt in on top. Because if we don't do that, the gophers would have climbed in here from the bottom and eaten everything, especially the Jerusalem artichokes. They would just adore something that yummy. Since I couldn't do what I wanted to do last fall, I learned this winter reading and listening to videos that garlic is actually a heavy feeder. Now, I don't know how I missed that, but all alliums are heavy feeders. So that means all the onions and stuff should be fed heavily too. So I have been, anytime the ground is defrosted this winter, throwing some 20-20-20 or some other liquid fertilizer in there to both give them a little bit more moisture and also to try and give them a little bit of get up and go. So my goal is to, if I couldn't rebuild them properly, to at least sort of supplement them. And this spring, when we harvest our garlic, this spring and summer, I'm hoping to be able to really dig out at least a section at a time and improve the soil. Right now our sunchokes are tiny because they're too crowded in here. And I did pull some, we had a thaw just for a few days, about a month ago, and I managed to dig some garlic and some sunchokes out. And so that'll help to thin it a little bit. But I really want this to be a more productive bed. I won't say it's a waste, because it's not. It looks pretty. And I do get some garlic out of it. But we love garlic. And we love taking elephant garlic, roasting it, and then putting it on toast. We want to be able to do more of that this year. And most of the time, the garlic in the stores here is pretty crappy. I don't think most people around here cook with garlic. Or if they do, they're buying the pre-chopped garlic. Pre-chopped garlic is okay. We've used it before. We always have some in the fridge. It's often packed in canola oil, which I'm allergic to. So we have to find the stuff that's not packed in canola oil. And on top of that, Yeah, sometimes it's just cooler to actually sit there and squish out individual cloves of garlic and spread them on toast. So I'm going to fertilize them with some fish fertilizer. This tank over here is rainwater off of this roof. I've been using the top third went to watering the birds. I water the birds every morning. I have 4 old frying pans that I use as bird baths. And I have a huge collection of bluebirds, dark-eyed juncos, robins, and all the other assorted beasties that come in, because at this time of year I'm probably the only person around with open water that they can drink. That hard water is really hard to drink. So let me go ahead and get this fertilized. Now, if anyone is wondering what this is the top of an elk skull, because everyone has those in the garden. There was a female elk hit by a car that we found her carcass a few years ago, and we collected some of the bones for a friend who was looking for carving materials, and took the skull too, because why not? I have a sheep skull too. I'm sort of flood watering this, so I'm not worried about the fact that I'm actually pouring out over the top of the rows. But I can still use the rows to get around the edges. I really want to soak this well, because the water won't hurt it. It's free draining. But I really want the garlic to produce a bit better this year. And the sunchokes are in here too, so it certainly won't hurt them. Long term, we need to decide whether we're going to keep the sunchokes. Sunchokes are an interesting plant. A lot of people consider them to be a survival food, because you can leave them in the ground until you dig them. Now, unfortunately, sometimes you'll get critters that'll eat them, whether bugs or rodents. And I will say that the garlic is looking healthier than it has in a couple of years, so I think the fertilizer is helping. I know the water's not hurting. And this is normally on drip irrigation in the summertime because it needs it. Okay. I am going to do one more thing before I shut this down for the day. I'm going to make a small batch of this. And I'm going to water the straw bales. In case you're wondering, that's ice. I had to break the ice on the top of the water this morning. I tried to break it into as big a pieces as possible, because otherwise it's a pain in the patootie when I'm trying to fill up the bird bath. There we go. So I'm going to move over to a set of straw bales. This is one of our straw bale gardens from last year. It's got 4 cabbages in it. And any time this winter, when it has not been frozen, probably even a couple times when it was semi-frozen, I have come along and I have fertilized these guys and watered them. Now, I've just been using a simple 20-20-20 non-organic, easy to grab at the big box store sort of stuff most of the time. I figured since I was out using fish emulsion today, I'd hit these guys with a little bit of that. Certainly won't hurt anything. I'm going to go back and forth because this is a little... Can't tell if it's frozen. No, it is soaking in slightly. Okay, good. Anyway, my hope is that once the weather eases up a little bit... By the way, these guys have not been covered all winter. It was 18 this morning when I got up. So, and they've seen weather... I think 10 is the coldest it's been in the North Yard this year. But they've seen that for weeks on end when it was pretty brutal around here. So they survived. Did they do spectacularly? No. But they survived, and I have hopes that come spring, when things defrost a little bit more, they will actually do something before they die. Obviously, I'm going to be watching them, and if they start attracting too many bugs, I'll just harvest them and we'll eat whatever is there. We are going to reuse these. We haven't decided what we're going to reuse them for. These were used for mostly cucurbits last year, so squash and cucumbers. Technically, I shouldn't do that. This year I should make sure that I plant something like tomatoes or something over here. So we'll see. It's kind of interesting because these outsides of the straw bale look just as firm as they ever did. But inside it's really, really black soil. It's quite yummy looking. I was actually quite impressed when I tore out the dead plants that were in here to discover how black the soil was. I haven't seen that kind of soil since I moved to Arizona. That's it for today. So that's what I'm up to this morning. I have lots more to do today, but I wanted to make sure that I got everything fertilized first thing this morning. It's one more thing off my list before I need to go to the event. This was the 2 spots that I really wanted to get done. If you like this sort of thing, don't forget to like and subscribe. And hit that notification bell so that you know when we're doing something else. We've got lots of things on the drawing board for this summer. There'll be some traveling trips around the United States. There'll be some, heaven knows, lots of gardening. Lots and lots of gardening. Definitely some repair work. So we'll see. Lots to do. So until next time, bye. I have a cat going totally crazy over there.